Hey everybody, how's everybody doing today? Welcome to my Thursday live stream where we talk about photography, and I do the best I can to answer any questions you might have about photography and Olympus cameras in general, any technical questions or photography related. But mostly I'm just here to just catch up on what's new, say hi to everybody, see how everybody's doing. Hope everyone's doing well, and thank you for taking time out of your day to spend it with me. I really appreciate it. I see a lot of my friends are here. Demorkin and Randy, Jeff Painter. Let's see, Serge is here. Arthur, oh, good to see you. Marjorie from Sydney, good deal. Um, John Allen, Plato, Marsha from Florida. It looks like yes. Gosh, it's so nice down there. It's actually a really gorgeous day today. I got out a little bit this morning, just running some errands, but it's like feels like springtime. I mean, it's only 50 some degrees, but still, that's it's going to be the nicest day for a while, I think, because tomorrow or tonight it drops below freezing, and then it's going to be kind of cold for the next several days. But I will be going on a photo walk this Saturday with the local photography club run by David Crooks, who's usually here. I haven't seen him come in yet, but maybe he's here. And wow, hey, Walter Rowe is here. Also, yeah, I wanted to let you know that I'm using a new live streaming service for the next few days at least, just see how it goes. Because it allows me to have several guests. Because this Sunday, big announcement, I'm having my second annual Micro Four Thirds online meetup, and where a bunch of us that are photographers here online on YouTube, we're going to get together and talk about the future of Micro Four Thirds, our hopes and dreams for Olympus, and things we'd like to see. So definitely be here for that this coming Sunday, 10 a.m. And that's Eastern Standard Time. So whatever your time zone you're in, uh, you know, check it out. But the best way, of course, is subscribe, hit the bell notification, and then on the video itself, there's a button there that says reminder. So if you click the reminder as well, hopefully you'll get notified. But ultimately, there's no replacement for just writing it down or remembering it, whatever your memory tools are. But I've been trying to be at least semi-consistent Sunday 10 a.m. So if you're a regular here, you know that already. If not, definitely try to use any of those tools to be here for Sunday, because that hopefully will go really smooth. Also, you guys are kind of my guinea pigs because this is the first time I'm actually using this streaming server for live. I did several test runs. I think a few of you saw it the other day. I had a test live stream, which I deleted shortly thereafter. But so if the sound and video is okay, maybe Walter, pay attention to my lip syncing, if that's on track or not. Because when I'm looking at my screen, it looks kind of a tiny bit off. Because oddly, the streaming software looks like it's using the microphone input directly and not going through my OBS, which gives me the green screen and everything like that. So, Arthur, you feel like waiting for a movie to start? I know I should play like all those things we used to see in the movie theaters. Gosh, I can't even remember. I haven't been to a movie theater in many, 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 many years. I think the last movie I saw in a theater was Iron Man, the first one. Oh, it only goes to 720p. Oh, that's a setting I need to change. But if I mess with it now, it might end the stream. But thank you for that. I can stream in full 1080, but unfortunately, it looks like I'm in uh, 720 because I forgot to change the settings. I think the default setting is 720. But I'm using an app called Melon App. Um, Something brand new, but it was developed by Streamlabs, who uses OBS as their framework, and they developed their own streaming software. But anyhow, that's all fine and good. I mean, it's nothing you guys really need to worry about, except other than the quality of my live streams improving, hopefully. Because the other thing I did, um, yes, I did pay for the service, Walter. So I can get 1080. I just forgot to set it when I set up the live stream. So maybe before the next live stream, I'll have that set up. I hope. I hope I can do that without. Otherwise, I'll be streaming this Sunday at 720, which ultimately it's not a big deal, but still, I'm paying for it. Why not use it? What was I going to say? Um, I was talking about something. Oh yeah, I'm routing my. It's the same setup I used the other day. I'm routing it through my. Uh, I'm hardwired into another router, my Netgear Nighthawk, which is a tri-band high-end router, which really the signal strength is excellent in this room. So hopefully I don't have any jittering or freezing and pausing, and you get that circle on the screen, because I know how annoying that's been the last couple of weeks. But somehow that Verizon modem that I bought, I paid a couple $100 for that from Verizon because I thought I needed it. Apparently I don't. I could use any router. Um, the the Wi-Fi on it is getting really flaky. It's because what my thought was to hook everything up to the Verizon router except for this computer that I stream with. I want this to go directly to my Netgear Nighthawk router, which is hardwired into the Verizon. And but now it looks like even the my Netflix and Amazon and my other streaming services that I use are starting to freeze up and have problems unless I reboot the router. And I rebooted yesterday, and then I was watching today, and it started freezing and jittering, so I rebooted again. Fortunately, it doesn't seem to be affecting the wired connections. So, but my Netgear Nighthawk router, I'm having problems with. I can't log into the admin area for some reason because I wanted to turn off the 2.4 gigahertz transmitter because it overlaps with the Netflix, Verizon. Anyway, this show is too hard for you, huh? I'm sorry, Plato. Marjorie is asking, I've always wanted to know what first got you interested in photography. Ah, okay. Well, I talked a lot about it. Well, no, I didn't. A little bit, but generally, um, I had a couple of dogs, Jeannie and Paulina, in the 2000s, early 2000s, and they passed away right around 2011, 2012. And up until then, I had been using little point and shoots and just random cheapo cameras that I took pictures of them, and I didn't do it very often. And I always regretted that. So when I got my new dog, Riley, um, I, I wanted to get a good camera and take great pictures of our adventures together. So I started a website called robtrek.com. and it was going to be about my travels and adventures with my dog Riley. And so I I bought a Sony NEX, which I still have. It's up there on the shelf in 2011 or 12, something like that, around that time frame, to get better pictures of me and my dog when we go out hiking and camping. I used to be a lot more active, and that's why I got into photography. And then um, the camera was also able to do videos, so I wanted to start doing videography of my travels with my dog when I go out hiking and camping. And so I started the channel Rob Trek here on YouTube. And it's mainly just going to be for my family to see what I'm doing when I go out and on my adventures. But I guess a few years later, uh, unfortunately, Riley got very sick when I started the YouTube channel, and I never got a chance to record any videos of us out together when he was around, because he passed away. And it was around 2016 that I bought an Olympus camera because I wanted to get a smaller, lighter camera, because at the time I was shooting a Nikon D750. And, I had the big 25-liter, whatever, backpack, lugging all that gear around when I went hiking and camping. And I said, I don't need to bring all this all the time. It's heavy. So I said, I'm just going to get a small camera. So I went to the camera store and I bought the EM10 Mark II. And I was looking at the EM10 Mark II and the Fuji X-T10 and the Panasonic GX or G80, I believe it was. And they didn't have a G80 or G85 on the shelf. So I put the Fuji and the Olympus side by side. I knew nothing about cameras, Uh, I had been shooting Nikon up to that point, and I knew about Nikon. I knew the difference between full frame and APS-C, but I didn't know anything about Micro Four Thirds, and I knew very little about Fuji. I just knew it was an APS-C sensor. So, yeah, you heard Ellie. You guys heard her howling. Every time an ambulance or police car goes by, she howls. But I just thought the M10 Mark II was just a sharper looking camera. And they said it's Micro Four Thirds versus APS-C. The people at the District Camera. I bought it from District Camera, and I was able to get the EM10 Mark II. I think like $100 cheaper than the Fuji. So I just went with that. I didn't care about sensor size or anything like that, because I was already fairly competent in photography at that point. Um, and it was just a travel camera, so I didn't care if the image quality wasn't quite the same as my full frame. But after I took it out a few times and took pictures with it, when I got back and looked at the pictures, I was just amazed. I was just amazed. I was like, this little tiny camera is taking just as nice of pictures as my Nikon D750, for the kind of pictures I was taking. So I was just fascinated by that. And then the Pen F was also there on the shelf when I was looking at the EM10, but they wanted $1,200 for it, right? And I was like, well, this is just a second travel, uh, beater camera that I'm going to be using. I don't want to spend $1,200, But a few months later, after I was so impressed with the EM10 Mark II, I bought the Pen F in September as a gift to myself. It was my 50th birthday gift to myself. I turned 50 back in 2016, or was it? Yeah, it was 2016, I believe. So I bought that for myself as a gift, and really pretty much since then, I said, I wonder if I could do my professional work with this Micro Four Thirds, because all of my images are exported out to 2 megapixel, for viewing on those websites and stuff, real estate photography, I said, the D750 technically is overkill anyway for that kind of thing. So I said, I wonder if I could do my professional work with this. Then I wouldn't have to lug around that D750 for anything. So I bought a 7 to 14 millimeter Panasonic lens and said, okay, I'm going to do a photo shoot with this system, EM10 Mark II and a 7 to 14 millimeter lens. And client didn't see any difference. They were happy as always, the clients with my photography. So I've been pretty much 99.9% Micro Four Thirds shooter ever since it was either late 2016 or early 2017. I pretty much put the Nikon away, and it's really, there's probably not even 100 frames on that camera since I switched over to Micro Four Thirds for both my personal and my professional work. And I've never looked back, and it's really opened my eyes to, it's all about your skill set, your skill set and what your goals are, right? Than it is the gear. And certainly there's a place for different types of cameras, full frame, medium format, whatever, film, Polaroids, whatever format you're using, there's always a place for it, a niche, right? That you're going to want to have the right tool for the right job, so to speak, when you're working professionally, getting paid for work. But I haven't found really any need until very recently to use anything other than Micro Four Thirds. And I did a photo job last week of a car dealership, and I had to do video work too, right? And that's why I bought a full frame camera, this Nikon S5, because it has really amazing video skills. It's great at capturing shadow detail without any noise. It recovers highlights. It's a full frame GH5 basically, and it does excellent video. But for the car dealership, I didn't even need the Panasonic S5 to do video work for that. For the interview session where the agent talks into the camera, I just used my EM1 Mark III in aperture priority, natural color profile, nothing special. I didn't do, Cinema 4K and all of that, right? And for the for most of the scenes around the dealership, actually I used my DJI Pocket Osmo, which just has a little, 2/3 inch sensor, right? But what I like about the DJI Osmo is, it's really tiny and compact and has a gimbal built in, so I don't have to bring that giant Zion Crane gimbal I got. I can just put this little tiny camera on a painter stick, and I put it up really high and got down angle shots and down angle videos of the property. And the client was just blown away with the video. And so, and it was a cloudy day, so I didn't need a lot of dynamic range. And for the photos, I used the M1 Mark III, and I just did sky replacement because it was cloudy. And there was actually one shot, well, maybe two, that I forgot to take pictures of. The main customer lobby area. I don't know how I walked out of there without taking a picture of the nicest spot in the whole dealership. But the customer waiting area with the receptionist and all of that, right? That was the only nice place in the whole property. And I didn't get a picture of it, but I did get video of it. So all I did was I took a frame from the video, did a little editing in Photoshop, and gave that to the client. And it, when you compress everything down to 2 megapixels for viewing online, it doesn't matter really. And fortunately, I didn't have to worry about doing any kind of highlight recovery and stuff in the windows and things. because it was a very small area. So I I would have done something if I had remembered to take a picture of the lobby area. I would have taken a different angle with some of the windows in, but I just took a shot of just the lobby area, which there were no windows, but light was coming in from the windows, right? So I was getting good natural light into the customer lobby area, and that's how. Um, and I just took a freeze frame, a clip out of the video and used that as one of the images that I delivered to the client. And they didn't. Nobody notices really. But anyhow, I I guess my point of that story was that you can use any gear to do even professional work. Fortunately, to a point, right? If I needed to use flash and things like that, I wouldn't be able to use a video clip from the DJI Osmo. But you can get away with a lot of things when you can compress images down just for viewing on the web. And that's why a lot of images you see on Instagram and Facebook and all of that, they're beautiful images, but you can use almost any camera to get those kind of pictures, right? Because they're all low res, they're all compressed, and it's not like I was watching. Somebody sent me an email. I think it was DeMorkin. I forget. I think DeMorkin somebody sent me an email with a link to that guy with the blonde hair talking about how he only shoots JPEG and he doesn't shoot RAW for any of his professional work. And you see I guess that's his wife, and in some of the images, just beautiful images because he talks about how he knows how to he understands light and photography. He's a good photographer. It doesn't matter the gear so much, and certainly didn't matter that if he was shooting RAW or JPEG, he just shoots 8-bit JPEG because, again, most of the time your work is being displayed online. And even for large prints, if you have enough resolution there, you're fine with a JPEG image. Now, as enthusiasts, of course, we like to manipulate our images, right? And see the possibilities of our gear and also of the scene. Like, try to capture what we saw with our own eyes. And that's why we shoot RAW, right? Is so we can recover those shadows and highlights and manipulate the image, maybe get creative with it so that we can really produce an image that we want people to see or that we might enjoy for ourselves. So that was the only contention I had with that video was he was pushing very hard that he only shoots JPEG and it's pointless to shoot in all these high-end raw image files, high-end cameras, high-end video work with 10-bit 422 raw. He got into all that. He said, those things don't matter at all. It's all about telling a story. And I don't disagree with anything about that. But the flip side is, or a counterpoint to his video would be, we're enthusiasts, most of us, right? We're not doing professional work. And we enjoy that process in shooting in RAW and doing editing in post, right? And pulling in highlights and shadows and adding color, adjusting white balance, all of those things, just for fun, right? Because we can. So, after watching that video, don't feel guilty that you're shooting RAW because you have to, because you're not able to recover highlights and shadows. You don't understand. Where am I going with this? I'm just saying it's okay to shoot RAW. In fact, I highly encourage you shoot in RAW so that you can do that post-processing. You learn a lot about photography and the limitations of your camera when you shoot in RAW. And I think that helps accelerate your learning process. At least it did for me, and so I think that's the only counterpoint I would make to that video is that there's a lot of reasons to shoot RAW when maybe professionally for him, it doesn't matter. He shoots in JPEG, but for many of us, we have to shoot in RAW. Especially for some of the work that I do, when I go onto a scene and I don't know exactly what I'm going to run into in terms of lighting. So shooting in RAW gives me that flexibility to make adjustments if I need to deliver the best possible image I can to the client. And and it compensates a little bit for my lack of skill in terms of lighting, because sometimes, I'll bring a flash and it's not powerful enough for the lighting conditions I need. So shooting in RAW gives me just a little bit more flexibility to adjust for that. Um, so, it. I think I would always recommend shoot JPEG plus RAW for us, right? And for many professionals, they'll shoot RAW as well. So I thought it was a little bit harsh or narrow-minded to say you don't need to shoot RAW, because if you understand lighting, you can shoot with a JPEG. And that's not wrong, but at the same time, not all of us are as skilled as that or do that kind of photography that he was showing, portraits in different places. Okay, so I left off here at 3:25 p.m. where it says, Plato says he came from a Canon, was blown away by the IQ from Olympus, the M5 Mark II. Yeah, it's really good. I guess because when I got the M10 Mark II, my expectations were pretty low because it was like a $600 camera, and I was shooting with a $2,000 at the time, a $2,000 full frame. So my expectations were low, but they weren't like, bottom of the barrel. They were just like, well, I think I can get some good shots out of this. But when I took the picture, I was like, man, these look just as good as my Nikon. I was like, why am I lugging that thing around? And Randy says, Robin got blasted for buying an old Canon camera. I did skim that video a little bit today. I'm going to watch it in full. But I think it was just an old Canon 5D, the Mark I, like the first one. I think that's awesome, because it gives Robin a chance to explore other camera systems, not because he needs to switch or wants to switch systems, but because every camera gives you a different experience in photography. I mean, the most extreme example would be shooting, large plate 8x10 or whatever film is one extreme. Then the other extreme would be shooting maybe medium format digital. Uh, but there's everything in between. Like he has the Fuji XF10, now he has a Canon 5D. Who knows what else he's got under his belt there in his drawer. And you guys know I have multiple cameras from every brand, right? The only thing, I mean, yeah, I have a camera from almost every brand, a common brand, Sony, Nikon, Canon, Olympus, Fuji. I don't have Leica. uh, I have a Pentax, and I think that's it. Uh, and but Olympus is my go-to camera every time. Every time I go out on a photo walk, especially since I joined the photo club, I think about what camera should I take? We're going to this park, or we're going to this place, and I think about what camera am I going to need or want to take if I go there. And I'd say half the time it's the Pen F. I want to take the Pen F with me. And the other half, maybe more than half, probably 80% Pen F. And the other half, the rest of the time I like the EM5 Mark III. I've never once said, I'm going to take my Nikon D750, or I'm going to take out my Pentax, or my Canon or my Fuji. Never do I think that. I'm like, because those, it's just, well, mainly because I'm extremely familiar with the Olympus, right? And I can get the results I want. I understand the camera, how to use it and everything, more than any of those other cameras. But because, like the Nikon I have, I certainly have the lens selection. I haven't sold any of my lenses from Nikon system. I probably got about, 20 lenses for that camera. And only about 5 or 6 of them are any good. But, um, the size and weight of that thing, going out on a photo walk, I just didn't see any need to bring it. So it's always the Olympus. No other camera system has attracted me or drawn me or given me a reason to switch to them at this point. And even though I bought this thing, I should take this out on the photo walk next time I go, actually. My S5. I mean, it takes great pictures. I've taken it out a couple times on a few photo walks. And pictures are fine, but look at the size of this thing, relatively speaking, to my EM5 Mark II or Mark III. This is a beast, you know? And in the end, I'm not going to take any better pictures with this than I can with my EM5 Mark III or my Pen F. But it does give me a little different experience shooting with this than it will with other cameras. You know, my EM1 Mark III. Oh, I gotta put a lens on here. Keep the dust off the sensor. But yeah, this just feels like, it just fits like a glove, when you hold this camera. It's really nice. This is this is the pinnacle of Olympus cameras, right? The EM1 Mark III. Has all the latest features. That was 100% Olympus. So we'll have to see what happens with GIP. Hopefully they continue the fine craftsmanship and engineering and innovation that Olympus has been doing for the last 100 years with their cameras, right? Okay. Let me check the comments here, make sure we're still not frozen or anything like that. It looks like the stream's going pretty smoothly. Yeah, good on him for trying a new system, right, Marjorie? Absolutely. And Rick Bear, hey, how you doing, Rick? I didn't see you come in here. Um, and hopefully you're feeling better and Magrat's doing well and everything, you're recovering fine. Marjorie, let's see, I think it's been stuck in, yeah. And then Music Sound Gear says, do you have used the vertical grip for the EM1 Mark II? I do not. I don't have a need for a vertical grip. If I was doing portraits, like people portraits, I might consider one, but that's not my line of work. I'm always on a tripod professionally, and for personal stuff, I want to travel as small and light as possible. So I have no need for a grip. I mean, other than holding the camera vertically, the grip adds the benefit of battery life, right? And I find I get through a whole day shooting on a photo, well, half a day, because I never walk all day long. But, I can get through a whole photo walk on one battery, no problem. I could probably go the whole day. So I don't need the extended battery life, and I don't need the vertical part of it. So I don't have one. Um, Randy says, I'm so spoiled by the Olympus WYSIWYG. Yes. And Seraphin, sucks to be stuck at home, but hooray for trying new formats. Yeah. Like I said, it's fun shooting different cameras. I enjoy shooting my Pentax, sometimes my Fuji, just seeing the colors and the kind of images it produces, and just trying to get the most enjoyment out of every system I can. Um, I don't get to those cameras very often, but when I take them out, I appreciate what they are and what they can do. And for some, it's the system for them. That's what they want to shoot with. For people like me, it's just having the luxury of being able to have more cameras it just allows me to experience photography on a broader level and enjoy it even more. But it's not my go-to camera for professional work. It's still the Olympus. But I can totally understand why someone else would be totally fine working professionally, with any other system. They're all fine. And it's back to that guy's other point about, the guy I was talking about earlier who shoots JPEG for his professional work. If you're a competent photographer, you can shoot JPEG, and deliver professional images. In fact, and I've mentioned it before, I accidentally forgot to shoot RAW on one of my photo jobs, and I came back with all JPEGs. And it was fine, I was able to work with the JPEGs. It didn't give me as much wiggle room if I made a mistake. uh, but generally, real estate is pretty straightforward. Just get your lines straight and make sure you take a picture of all the rooms, and don't forget to take like the main customer lobby area, and you'll be all right. Yes, Marcus Picks. Thank you, Lauren. I think it was Lauren who sent me the email, not DeMorgan. Both of you send me emails, or DeMorgan posts in my forum more often than I do. But DeMorgan, he posts really long, he makes really long posts, but they're a good read, definitely. I think the last one I was reading was about film simulations, which was interesting. And Lauren says, Marcus Fix is great at marketing himself. His wife is pretty awesome. Interesting stuff he has done over the years. He's also an artist. Yeah, I watched that. That's really the only video I've ever watched from him at any length, Um, I mean, he seems like an interesting guy, really. I just don't have time to watch all these different channels. And Marcia says, Robin and Rob can use whatever they like. They are larger than one camera brand, and they have respect for the photographic process. Oh, thank you. And Lauren says, I've always shot JPEG. Yes, you do. You've only sent me JPEGs in my photo editing streams. Most people like the results. I like the results, and thus hang in there with JPEG. And Lauren often posts comments on my videos, so you should post one after the stream's over. A link to your portfolio. I think it's on PhotoBucket or something, or SmugMug. But time to time, he'll post a link to his gallery. And, he takes great pictures, and they're all JPEG. And he uses all different kinds of cameras. Now he's recently added a Canon RP, right? Which is kind of cool. And Morgan says, I did not send that. I understand his point, but I want a photo to be mine and think I am smarter than the camera. Yes. There's certain satisfaction when you get a picture right in camera, right? And Retro Nighthawk says, do you take extra lighting when your business shots? Also, I only started working with raw image, and I love what I can do with the raw file. Yes, I always bring lighting. It's pretty much mandatory in my field of work to use a flash, because real estate photography, architectural photography is not too dissimilar from product photography. You have to accurately reflect what the client is purchasing, right, online. So, of course, you want to show in the best light possible, but you have to accurately reflect. And using a flash solves a lot of problems with getting the image to be accurate, especially white balance. White balance is a big issue, and flash eliminates white balance issues. The other thing flash eliminates is high dynamic range scenes. So a good example is if you're looking at a living room and they have big windows and the sun is shining in, the windows are going to be blown out. Whether you shoot RAW or JPEG, no camera has enough dynamic range for extremely bright sun outside and a very dark interior, right? So you have to use a flash to balance that out. So yes, I have to always bring additional lighting, and I use a Godox lighting system. And I use one Godox as the main trigger. I use a Godox flash as a radio trigger and a flash. And then I usually have a second light that I just hold with my hand. And if you go onto my channel and search for real estate, you'll see a couple of videos of me out in the field. I actually vlog a couple of the photo shoots that I actually was on a real job. So you can actually see me in action there. And you can see my setup is very, very simple. The very first, when I first started using the EM10 Mark II in real estate, I just had a Nikon um, flash. I forget which one it is. The SB800 flash. I had an SB800. I had the M10 Mark II and the Panasonic 7 to 14 and a tripod. And that's all I needed, you know, um, at the time. But as my skill set improved, I was able to do better pictures, right? And take on bigger jobs. And that's when I expanded my lighting system. I could still do all of my jobs with the EM10 Mark II, but I have an EM1 Mark III now, so that's what I use now for my jobs. And but the most important element is lighting and flash. And Canon give a great out-of-camera JPEGs, and so does Nikon, Olympus, Panasonic. Sony of recent has decent. Uh, Used to be strange color issues, yes. My old NEX6, I was never a big fan of the colors out of that. And the Canon RP is great for JPEG, yeah. I did have that for a few weeks, or 3 or 4 weeks. I borrowed it from my cousin. He uses a Canon RP, and I did a couple of videos on that. And Stephen Page says, just got a Minolta 7000 made back in the 80s. Yeah. God, the Minolta 7000. Let me look that up real quick. I'm pretty sure that's a film camera. Yeah. Oh, that's I have that camera. That's why it sounds so familiar. It was, but mine is the previous model, the Maxim 2000 or what. It looks exactly like the 7000. Um, I have a vlog shooting with that camera, and I actually have some images from the film that I took from that camera. Maybe you've seen it. The title of it's something like going back to 1985 or something. But that camera was a camera I had in college. From it says, take half of your cameras with you. Each one has unique features. No. And Lauren says, sell the Fuji camera. I don't feel you'll ever warm up to it. Yeah, I should sell it, but at the same time, I can't. And Rick says, Rob, it sounds like we need a classic Rob Track YouTube video on why RAW beats JPEG hands down. Although I agree JPEG has its uses, not appropriate for people in professional quality. I do have a video on RAW versus JPEG, which I think does make that point. So just search my channel, RAW versus JPEG. It's a great video, actually. If you know nothing, I mean, I could have done a better job with it, but it's really a very good video. Um, it's RAW versus JPEG. It's actually, yeah, one of my better videos. Like I said, I could have done a little better job explaining things, but I did the best I could at the time. And Roberto says, I'd like to buy another brand, but the learning curve of buttons, etc. is too painful, so I stick with the M10. Yeah. And Jeff Painter says, let's face it, we're thoroughly spoiled on the choice of cameras and lenses on the market. I've had most brands over the years and enjoyed all of them. Yeah, me too. Jeff Smith says he came from a Canon 5D, 1DX, tried Ollie, sold the Canon gear for me, the M12 and the M1X. Not going back. Yeah, that's a very common story of Micro Four Thirds owners. I mean, honestly, most of us shot other cameras before Micro Four Thirds, right? I mean, we weren't always Micro Four Thirds users. Now, there's a lot of new users, of course, but many of us shot full frame APS-C for years and years before going to Olympus. Is what it's kind of just a gut feeling. I mean, I don't know if statistically that's true, but I think it's true for a lot of us. And Randy says, I take an Olympus Flex TLR, OM2 SP, and a Minolta XD11 and a Nikon F4. Wow. Wow, those are all great cameras. I've never seen an Olympus TLR, but I guess they would have made some, when those things were kind of all there was. Plato says, my Canon 5D3 has very good ability to pull back blown highlights. Okay. All with different films in them. Yeah. I really want to go out and shoot some film. But I'm just, I don't know. Jeff Painter said he loves the EM1 Mark III. It's his favorite camera ever. Yeah, it's a great camera. No question. And DeMorgan says, when I use multiple brands, the hardest thing was color matching between them before I could make profiles in Lightroom. Yes. I've never tried to color match different cameras. I mean, supposedly the process is not too difficult if you use one of these X-Rite cards. I've done color profiles for my M1 Mark II and my Pen F, but I never use them, honestly. I should pay attention to that. Especially on my professional work, right? Using the color profiles. I might have to redo them because the cameras have aged a little bit since I last did it. And Lauren says, professional means you're doing something for a living. Non-professionals can indeed do better artistic work. Unless you're getting paid to do artistic work, right? Then you're a professional artist. John Allen, an old Leica 3 box can sell for $250. Yeah. And those things are like 50, 70 years old, right? I mean, they're old. They're from the 50s. And Randy says, I'm bidding on a Nikon AF 80-400. Wow. Wow, I thought it was an 80-200. Is it they have a 400? I haven't looked at Nikon stuff in so long. I'm pretty sure it's an 80-200 with VR and 5.6. I'd seriously doubt a 400 millimeter. All right. I'm just going to pull it up. It's probably right there. Oh, that's a new lens. I'm thinking old. This is $2,300 brand new. They have a used one at KEH for $407, but that's got to be an older model. So here's one. Man, why is this so cheap compared to brand new? I had no idea they had an 80-400. That's pretty amazing. And Serge says, will I get much better image quality using the 12-40 Pro and an Olympus OMD M10 Mark II instead of the kit lens? Or is it better to upgrade the camera first? It's very subjective. I have a video comparing the kit lens and the 12-40 Pro. And if I remember correctly, you will see a difference, especially wide open, between the two lenses. So if you're shooting f2.8 on the 12-40 Pro and f3.5 on the kit lens, then The kit lens is definitely softer. Not much, but a little bit. And throughout the zoom range, I think once you get to about f5.6, it's extremely hard to tell a difference between the two lenses. If you're shooting f5.6 on both lenses, I really can't see much difference between the two. So if you need f2.8, particularly on the long end at 40 millimeters, it's definitely worth getting that lens if you need that f2.8 at 40 millimeters. Otherwise, uh, I don't think you really need to get the lens because wide open, the kit lens is at f3.5. That's only 2/3 of a stop over f2.8, right? It's not that much difference on the wide end. And then as you creep up, it spreads out to 2 full stops. And at that point, we're not talking about just depth of field, right? Differences, but we're also talking about light, how much light is coming into the camera, which affects your shutter speed and ISO. So in the long end, there's definitely a huge advantage with the 12 to 40 Pro above and beyond the sharpness. So I think if you need the faster shutter speed on the long end, definitely get that lens. But I wouldn't get that lens for the sake of just trying to get a sharper image. Because I don't think it's worth $500-600 used, right? It's like $1,000 new or some ridiculous price, right? I don't think it's worth it to spend that much on a lens just to get a little bit sharper. It's definitely worth it to spend that much if you need the shutter speed and ISO. Change my ringtone. So it ticks a little bit first and then it goes into a beat. But that's just my opinion. So watch my video on that comparison. If you haven't seen it already, maybe watch it again. But ultimately, it's about shutter speed and ISO on the long end. That makes all the difference. But buying another Olympus camera is not going to give you better images than your EM10 Mark II. The only thing really the higher end models give you, I mean, yeah, they're a little better in image quality, but not much. The only thing they really give you is some more convenience features, right? Like high-res shot mode or handheld high-res shot mode, live ND. There are additional features, weather sealing, that are definitely nice to have, but they don't improve your photography, right? The high-speed shutter, the pro capture, tethering, dual card slots. I mean, there's lots of reasons to upgrade up the line, but they have very little to do with image quality versus convenience and security between dual card slots and weather sealing. So, yeah, I rarely use my 12 to 40 Pro lens for anything personal. I don't find it that necessary. I'd much rather take a kit lens for the size and weight because that heavy lens will get, or it'll just wear on you after a while. So to answer your question, no, not much better. A little better is the short answer. And Randy says, I use the Nikon DF to augment my low light photography. That's an awesome camera. When that gets below $1,000, I might get one. And Roman says, I wish I could borrow a GFX 100 for 2 or 3 weeks to eventually find out my pictures are not get better. Lauren says, the problem with using Fujifilm only now and then is the way the controls work. It is different than others, so you have to spend extra time in the thought process to shoot. Yeah, definitely it slows me down. Not in a good way. And Walter says, I sent an email. Okay. That was, God, almost 15 minutes ago. I'm sorry, Walter. I got nothing. Let me check the other one. Sorry, Walter. I don't see any email from you. I saw one this morning about the coffee. but I haven't seen anything else. And DeMorgan says, let's see what Rob says. Yeah, I said it. I'm putting money in lenses first before upgrading cameras. The lens in general makes more difference. Yeah, the rule of thumb is always upgrade your lenses. Uh, but sometimes it's nice to have convenience features, right? I love handheld high res and I love the Live ND. Let's see. I sent the video link to the guy who shoots JPEG. Oh, I've seen that video, Walter. And thanks for letting me post there. Not sure if anyone reads them. Yeah, I read them. I read them. So if nothing else, I read them, DeMorgan, the posts in my forum. And I do read everybody's posts in my forum. I don't respond to many of them, but I do read them. Um, and Roberto asks, oh, I'm sorry. Rick says, the Magrat cat and I are both surviving, shielding. We have good fight. Or she's biting and kicking my gauntlet head every evening. Then it's time to watch the Trek live stream. All right. And Roberto says, what does JPEG actually do? Just compress it, or does it actually try and fix up the photo also? It depends on the manufacturer. But yeah, JPEGs and the Olympus cameras, definitely, they reduce noise. Uh, they apply any color profiles you may have set in the camera and any other settings, highlight, shadows. If you set up a color profile other than natural, monochrome, vivid, but also like sRGB, Adobe RGB, color profiles can be embedded. I mean, there's a lot of things embedded into the JPEG. That's why they always say it's baked in. There's a lot of things baked into a JPEG. But it does, and it may apply sharpening. It definitely applies sharpening and contrast because, you know, the default setting on our cameras is 0 and 0 for sharpening and contrast. But that's actually, when you do a RAW image, it's actually a -2, -2. So 0 is not really 0 on our cameras. It's actually 3. Uh, it's hard to articulate that for some reason. But yeah, it does a lot of processing generally. Noise is the biggest one I know. Then sharpening, contrast, and color profiles. It does all of those things. And then of course white balance. If you have a 2x teleconverter, I mean, it does a lot of, you know, there's a lot of settings in your camera that affect JPEG. The only setting in your camera that affects RAWs really is the ISO, because it adds noise as you go up higher in ISO. But um, nothing else affects a RAW image. None of the color profiles, sharpening, all of that is pretty much moot in a RAW image. They're not applied. And let's see. Roman says, I always shoot both since 2010. I just processed 7 to 8 pictures. I guess Rob processed more of my RAWs than I did. It's possible. I looked at my online editing stream, and there's been 2,800 and some uploads. Uh, Granted, half, not quite half, but almost half of those are just edits of my image. Since I didn't do that much in the beginning, so probably 2/3 of that, you know, probably almost 2,000 images I've edited. Ugh. I get calls on my phone constantly. I should turn it off, but I just, like I said, I have to watch out if my mom calls. That's the reason I started late today. My mom called me right at 3 o'clock. She calls me and asks me where she can go to get a COVID shot. And Randy says, I think most, if not all, cams have great IQ. If you want better, then go medium format, maybe. Maybe. Like I said, every camera has its place. And if somebody knows how to use the camera and get the most out of it, right? Oh, Marjorie, you liked my real estate vlogs? Yeah, I only have a couple of those, but yeah. I don't get to do that all the time because, half the time, more than half the time when I'm there, the client is there or uh, the the owner, the tenant, whoever's there at the property. So I can't vlog if people are there because it adds about 30 minutes to an hour to my photo shoot when I do a vlog at the same time of trying to do the real job. So I can't do it when people are there. But when nobody's there, it's a vacant building, which is about half the time. I always think about doing a vlog, and most people increase from 16 to 20 megapixels makes little difference. In some cases, the camera does not make difference. Yeah, I rarely, what was I going to say? I can't tell any difference in the images. Actually, photos need a better camera with PDAF. Also, low light, the 60 FPS and stacking gets rid of noise. Yes, definitely stacking, high-res shot mode, those kind of things, techniques do get rid of noise. Minolta made awesome cameras. Yes, they did. My Minolta SRT 101 that, I inherited from my dad. Um, man, that thing is built like a tank. I should take that out and shoot. Lauren, the Pentax SF1 was a great film camera. I'm not familiar with that one. Before that, you used the Canon TLB. Yeah, I don't know either of those cameras. Those are before my time. Is that the camera used at Great Falls for the images I scanned? No. That was a little pocket point and shoot camera. Um, just a little plastic point and shoot film camera, Walter. Not nothing special. And Randy says your first camera was a Minolta XD11. Really? I'm just curious what that looks like. I think I know what it is. Yeah, I've seen that before. $100. Seller refurbished. I didn't do a good job. Look at the leather. Oh my God. See nuts? How about the weather sealing? Look at the seals on that. Is he crazy? What the hell does seller refurbished mean to this guy? I mean, he didn't even clean the lens mount. There's still dirt on there. I mean, if you're gonna look at the dirt and grime in that, that is seller refurbished. That's a lie. Ugh. Oh, I'm sorry, you guys. I was looking at this the whole time. You guys weren't watching with me. I was like, look at all the dirt and grime in here, and the leather grip is coming apart, and the lens mount has not been cleaned. I mean, how can you claim right here it says seller refurbished right there. That guy's insane. What's his rating? Top rated plus 99. Oh, KEH. All right, KEH is a lion. Seller refurbished. That's that's a lie. Anyway, ask the Minolta XD11. And Morgan says, I remember the Minolta 135. Dang, I lost my place. I remember it was such a great lens. Oh yeah, the 135. I have a 135 millimeter Minolta uh, MD mount. Let me see if I can catch up here. I'm 20 minutes behind on the chat now. I'm going to read fast here. I use a Kodak Brownie Holiday. Wow, the brownies. And who enjoyed Rob's fisheye edit? Oh yeah, that's coming up next. I had to shoot medium format for years because 35mm was not acceptable to places. Yeah, medium format's definitely clean. And Randy's wants critique only. Okay, I'll try to remember that. And Lauren didn't send anything. And that's an old lens. Okay. I forgot what we were talking about. Okay, Walter left about 20 minutes ago. Sorry, I missed you, Walter. And Marcel says, "Hi, Rob. I was at a soccer game yesterday to take pictures for the newspaper with my old Nikon D4 and 400mm. Wow, Nikon F4. I'm sorry, not the D, the F, the film camera. During the match, I was constantly thinking about my Olympus gear. What a difference in weight. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and that D4 definitely was a beast. That was a big, big camera. And Lauren says, in Olympus, the 45mm is the best bang for the buck lens. Sharp enough, fast enough, good color. Yes, agree 100%. And Marcel says, my friend told me MFT is for elderly people. Oh my God. And DeMorgan says, I rented an X1D for 2 weeks. It was awesome. Not sure it was worth the money, but beautiful photos for a club band and poor lighting. I could not do with M43. Yes. Yeah, if you're going to be shooting, if you know you're going to be shooting in low light and you're getting, uh, I guess, I assume you got paid for it, but let's say whether you paid or not, just use the right tool for the right job, right? And Barry says, how far do you think cell phone cameras can go? My son has an iPhone 12 Pro, and low light and night shots he gets around London are great. Without even trying, he just points and shoots. Yeah, the cell phone market has definitely eliminated, I think, a lot of the consumer market for cameras. Um, they'll never be as good as a legit camera, in my opinion, until there's some leap in technology. I don't see any way, shape, or form how a cell phone will ever take as good a picture as a camera within the same technology era, right? So I could take my EM10 Mark II and get the same, if not better, images than his iPhone. And there may be instances where his iPhone may take better pictures than my EM10 Mark II. I don't know. I don't have an iPhone 12. I do have an iPad Pro, though. I should compare maybe. Because the AI or whatever, artificial intelligence type apps, computational photography, I think is what they call it, can do things that you can't do with just a camera sometimes. And in those instances, it will take a better picture. But that said, uh, at this point in time, there's very little I can't do with my EM10 Mark II. There's a lot of things I cannot do with a cell phone camera, whether it's iPhone 12 or I have a Galaxy S9, whatever. I could not do my professional work with a cell phone because of the dynamic range problems that a cell phone has because of the tiny sensor, and because I can't synchronize flashes, um, do types of bracketing that I need to do. I mean, there's very little. Yeah, I guess that's the best way to put it. There's very little I can't do with an EM10 or a real camera. There's a lot of things I cannot do with a phone camera at this point in time. If we're looking at a time frame of 5 to 10 years, I think that'll be the case. Beyond that, it's hard for me to say. There could be a leap in technology that would make, carrying a real camera pointless. I don't know. I mean, everyone keeps going back to the physics of the lenses. You know, you're just not going to overcome light gathering of a larger lens and a larger sensor. Uh, but I think that would be being short-sighted to think that physics might limit the ability of a cell phone camera. Um, because if you combine a basic sensor and lens with computational photography, there's probably very little that can't be accomplished eventually. But I don't think we're there yet or even close. I think we're 5 to 10 years, we're safe with respect to, safe's not the right word, but definitely real cameras will always do a better job and do everything. Cell phones are very, very limited to just taking snapshots. Like taking a picture in low light, yeah, it does a great job, but that's all it can do, right? It can take a picture at day, it can take a picture at night. Real cameras let you do a lot more things. There's a lot more you can do with a real camera. So that's what I think. But I will not say that we should have be short-sighted and say that cell phones will never take over a legitimate camera, right? Um, I think computational photography or some leap in technology will overcome a lot of physics, a lot of physical limitations we might see now that we wouldn't think about later. And before every weekend, 3,000 clicks. That's not photography. I'm not sure what you mean. Yes, new ringtone, David. Oh my God, I keep trying to catch up and I keep falling behind. DeMorgan says, I learned on a 4x5, one photo and it better be right. Yes. You know, I saw some video of a guy, I guess he was a big deal in his day, who shot film. But he would take a Polaroid of the scene first to make sure he got the lighting and everything correct. Because he doesn't, you have to get the film developed, but with a Polaroid, you see it right away, right? Within a reasonable time. So he would take a Polaroid of the scene once it's all set up, and then he would do a real picture. Because film was, not that money was any object for a project like that, but you don't get a second chance is the problem, right? You don't get a second chance to take that picture. So it has to be right. And Lawrence says, I don't own pro lenses. I will say that short zoom pro and Olympus might be a deal. Why don't you keep the lens on all the time? One lens shooter, yes. Like the 12 to 100 f4, that looks like a fantastic lens. If you just want to have one lens, 12 to 100 f4. Uh, and you won't need to buy anything else other than if you want to get a super tele 100 to 400 or something. But uh, that's the lens that does it all. Almost, almost. I still prefer a couple of primes and a wide angle, but Minolta 110 spy camera, yeah, those are always cool. I used to have a 110 camera. Man, the pictures were grainy. And Rick says, as Rob said, every camera has its place. I love my smartphone camera for capturing my cat doing crazy things. Yes, yeah, you know, the cell phone camera is definitely an opportunistic type camera. An opportunity will present itself and it's right there, right? The best camera you have is the one on you. No question. I use my cell phone mostly for documenting things. Like I was saying, I document the mileage on my odometer before I leave for a job. Um, I document, how much fuel is in my fuel tank, and I keep track of that. Things like that. I take a picture of the little fuel gauge. Um, I take pictures of documents, that I want to save or remember. Sometimes, like, you'll get a document in the mail. I'll take a picture of it, then I'll put the mail away. so that even if I lose the letter or I'm in a place where I need that letter, but it's at home and I'm in a different place, I can pull it up on my phone. So I use it for a lot of documenting type things, but for regular photography, extremely rare. Sometimes with Ellie. Yeah, sometimes I take some video of Ellie doing silly things, though. That's true. Randy says $100. That's not bad. That must be that XD11 we were looking at a while ago. Seller refurbish means CLA, clean, lubricate, and adjust. Um, yeah, he missed out on the clean part. Definitely. That camera was not clean. I mean, there's no lens on the camera. There's the, like you can't, like he didn't show the focusing screen, right? The little prism and focusing screen, that probably had spots and specks and dust all over it. So you're looking through the viewfinder, it's like looking through a frickin', tornado. It's just dust and grime in there based on the exterior is my opinion. And the way the seals had all rotted away, that probably all got up into the shutter mechanism. I don't know. CLA my butt. I CLA means you better clean the outside too, in my opinion. But I don't know what that camera's worth in good condition. So $100 might be the right price for that, but I wouldn't pay it. There was no new foam seals. If that's supposed to be included in CLA, there definitely the foam was all rotting away. And Rick, John Yusei says, first camera I bought was a Mamiya 500 DTL with a 50 millimeter 1.8. First camera to offer spot metering, which you invoked with a switch. Yeah, and I think the Olympus OM2S was one of the first 35 millimeters to offer spot metering. I don't know what the Mamiya DTL is. I think that's a 35 millimeter. Wow, introduced in 1966. So no, OM2S was not the first 35 millimeter. It was one of the few, maybe, but not the first, clearly. Because the OM2S came out, I think, in the 80s. I know nothing about camera history. Don't quote me on anything. And learning your craft with Rick says that learning your craft with the most basic equipment will teach you the most. I teach professional software developers on ancient computers. They're horrified at first, but learn more from the experience. Yes, I can see that. I mean, there's no replacement for learning the fundamentals of photography, and the basic cameras just have the fundamentals there, right? Aperture priority, shutter speed. That's all you need to take a picture, and everything else is just a convenience from there. If you want to get really basic. And Roberto says, problem with phone cameras is no grip and glare on the screen. Yeah, there's definitely handling issues and ergonomics and usability. Definitely. It's not a camera, it's a phone. Oh, Lauren's heading out. Okay, Lauren, we'll see you later. And, oh, okay, I'm almost caught up now. I'm 8 minutes behind. And Johannes de Wald says, the difference will always be in the lens. Sensors may overcome limits of today. Yes. Yeah, I don't see us getting past the physics of lenses for a very long time. But I don't know. I think with a good, artificial intelligence and because think about our own eyes, right? Our eyes have pretty much a fixed focal length, fixed dynamic range, everything. And look at what we can see with our own eyes because our brain is our own artificial intelligence, right? And we can see huge dynamic ranges, much more than normal, even though there are limits. And I think cameras will get there one day. Oh, Barry's heading out. Awesome. Thanks for coming in, Barry. And using Polaroids was my eerie too. It was still expensive. Yes, definitely. It's expensive now. So it had to be expensive back then. And Plato says, I can't imagine how they will replace pristine optical engineering with computational technology. Um, it's hard to imagine, but I know they will. Well, I don't know it, but I have a very high confidence that they will. Um, I mean, just like the Barry was telling us how his kid took his iPhone 12 Pro and took pictures in low light with no effort, right? Because the camera's doing all the work, and it's got a tiny lens on it, so it has to be the AI helping create that image. And it's very limited now. Like I said, phone cameras are very limited to a real camera. Phones are good for vlogs. Also, the quality of video is great these days. Yes. And Jeff says, we used to shoot black and white Polaroids on movie shoots on film to check highlights and shadows. That's cool. And Randy says, my 12 to 100 is always on my camera. It does it all. Yes. Yeah, that's a great do-it-all lens. It's just too big and heavy for me. I know you have no problem with big and heavy lenses and stuff because you have a 300 f4, you got a 100 to 4. I mean, you're walking around with telephotos all the time, but I'm Mr. Kit lens all day, all long, all night. Kit lens or a small prime. And let's see, cell phone give an alternative view, which is in many cases good enough. Still have not seen a 30 by 40 cell phone print hanging above a fireplace yet. Um, well, when they used to do conventions, Apple, they have their launch events. I think I think they did print some huge, wall size images from their iPhones just to impress, right? Yes. Randy says he's seen some bad looking film cams that take great photos. And my sister had a Panasonic DMC CM1, a hybrid phone and camera with proper lens. There's a flop, I think. Oh, that's one I never heard of. Oh, that's kind of cool. One of these things. $800 used. $1,900. $1,000 used. $1,000. Are they out of their frickin' mind? Wow. Shocker. Oh, Darko, how are you? Good to see you. I am doing well, thank you. And then John says Mamiya stopped making 35 millimeter in the mid 80s just to focus on medium format. Okay. Feels like what Fuji's doing, right? Maybe Fuji will do the same because they have medium format now. And Lars says the original. How you doing, Lars? I haven't seen you in the chat section a long time. Maybe you're watching, but I haven't seen you chat. The original 1964 Spotmatic was one of the first SLRs on the market to offer TTL exposure metering. That was my first SLR. Wow. And DeMorgan says, I appreciate the cell phone photos as they let me see the world and events I would never see otherwise. Yes, they are definitely documenting the world in a way that, has never been seen before. And Darko says, your video for bird photography settings is such. Are you doing another vid for urban wildlife? Maybe. No, I'm not. Uh, And Moses Bay's photography says, for Christmas, my wife said she purchased the 12 to 45 f4 Pro lens that I wanted. The problem is that Christmas came and went and the lens never arrived. She ordered it from a Unique Photo and emailed them. They just called her today to let her know that after contacting the manufacturer, Olympus told them that the lens is discontinued. I now worry that JIP might not be able to turn the brand around. Hoping you're wrong. Yeah, I hope you're wrong too. Wow, I haven't heard that before. Are you in the United States, Moises? I assume you are. And DeMorgan says work in optics that uses engineered materials known as metamaterials, properties not found naturally occurring material, to get around limits on resolution set by wavelength of light. What is being worked on in the labs had it to shrink 200 characters. Oh, okay. Yeah, so that would be a leap in technology of some kind, right? Uh, so maybe they'll use one of those fancy pants lenses on an iPhone. And Arthur says, remember they mathematically adjusted the Hubble telescope that it was launched out of focus by mistake, so it can be done. Yes, I didn't know that, but interesting. Randy says, for contrast, the best cameras about 14 to 1, whereas our eyes can be 26 to 1. Cameras have a ways to go. Oh, okay. So you're talking about dynamic range, I think. We can see 14 to 1 versus 26 to 1. Or we can see 26 to 1 versus a camera 14 to 1. And even 14 to 1 is debatable, in my opinion. And DeMorgan says a big part of processing is limiting dynamic range. Watch Rob work the blacks. Contrast is all about lessening the DR. Yes. And Moises says Unique Photo is in New Jersey. Oh, I know who you're talking about. Yeah, I never buy from them. I just read a few bad things about them. But maybe not. Maybe it's not them. But uh, maybe try B&H Photo and see. Let me see. BH Photo. Olympus. Oh, the 45. Yeah, in stock. So, yeah, it says right here, in stock. There was a camera company, not a camera company, but a retailer that sold cameras that would bundle the product with a bunch of different things, right? And then sell it at a reduced price below like everybody else, but you also got all of these additional things like batteries, cases, mini tripods, maybe a, basic flash, camera bag, but they would throw all these things in there and then sell it to you for the same price or lower price than B&H, for example. And then when you went to buy it, They would try and upsell you on warranties, extended warranties, repair, all kinds of other things. And you ended up paying, you could end up paying a lot more for the same thing after they upsell you, right? And and if you don't buy any of those things, you don't want to buy into, like when you go to a car dealership, undercoating and things they used to do, extended warranty, maintenance plans, all that stuff, right? You just want to buy the car. In this case, you just want to buy the camera or the lens. And if that's all you wanted, they may not even sell it to you because they're not making any money on it. And that may be why they said the manufacturer's no longer. I mean, I don't want to call anybody a liar. I don't know. But there was definitely some bad practices going on by some retailer. I don't know if it was this one or not. It just sounds familiar, but I don't know for sure. And if you didn't buy everything else with it, then they didn't sell it to you. Um, and they would come up with a story like, yeah, we're out of stock. Sorry, you know. Or they would sell it to you, take your money, but then never send you the product. There's companies that do that. So it just, I try to, uh, I try to vet everywhere I buy from if I can. And Randy, you got an OM1. Feels like fine jewelry. That's cool. Wow. John Allen had a Zenit SLR. My goodness. And Moises is in New York City. I think I've seen your Instagram account, Moises. Um, I haven't been, I've been posting a few pics, but I haven't really skimmed through a lot of pictures in a while. But I do seem to remember your name from there, I believe. And Rick Bear says it's true. A problem with digital cameras fixing too much for us is that learners aren't aware of the physics problems the cameras are tending to fix. So they expect too much. Yes. And Randy says Olympus OM system is going to be at CP Plus this year. Wonder what they'll reveal. Oh, wow. That's good news. And wrist check. Yes, it's 4:41 p.m. and I am wearing my Seiko 5 from 1979, I believe, was my dad's watch. Um, I don't know why I'm showing you guys the chat section. I forgot to change back the screen. Have I ever done a photo design? No, I have not, Darko. And Moises says, I was able to purchase land from Amazon, but I'm wondering if whatever stock is out is all that is left. Yeah, that's a good question. And Moises says, I've purchased from Unique Photos several times without issue. They have been great. Okay, good. And they don't charge tax if you ship out of New Jersey to a different state. Okay. I'll have to test that theory myself one day. And Rick says, I only buy Olympus Gray imports, but buy from established reputable seller. With what I save, I don't need a warranty as I could throw away a broken kit and afford to replace it. Yes. If the price is too good, expect a hoax. Well, yeah, always, right? Always buyer beware. But apparently Moises says he's had good experience with Unique Photos. So, but I do remember stories. I guess it wasn't about them, but of very shady retailers. And I don't even know if those stories were true. I've only heard them. So you're hearing a third, fourth, fifth hand. So I shouldn't even talk about it, to be honest. And Rick Bear says, how come gray imports are so cheap when they must be buying from Olympus? Um, well, I imagine It's something to do with warranty, right? When you buy a gray market camera, they don't come with a warranty from the Olympus. You'd have to get the warranty through the shop that sold it, and some of them do that. When you buy a gray market camera, the place you buy it from will warranty it for 1 year. I don't have any experience with that kind of purchase, but uh, on paper, it looks fine, you know. But I think I was watching something about Nikon making adjustments to their warranty, and even if the camera is out of warranty, let's say it's been more than a year, it's out of warranty and you need to get it repaired. The language of the new warranty says that if you bought this camera gray market, meaning you bought it in a country it wasn't supposed to be sold in, we're not going to fix it for any, even though it's out of warranty and we could charge you to repair it, we're not going to repair it. That's what would worry me down the road is I want to get it repaired and it can only be done by Olympus. And Olympus says, well, this is a gray market camera. We can't fix it. Even if you paid us, we can't fix it. That would be weird, but that would be my worry. And Darko says, Wish the 4K $1 video camera are such a scam too. I've never heard of that. Oh, Wish, yeah, Wish is a lot of fun, right? Uh, I see a lot of videos where it says, I bought, this $5 Rolex, from Wish, or I bought the cheapest camera from Wish, those things. I remember one guy bought like a, $800 gaming video card from Wish for like $50. And when he took the heat sinks off and everything, it turned out to be like a $50 card, if that. Oh, thank you, Moises. I appreciate that. Just to thank you for doing all these videos live and otherwise. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And DeMorgan says, my son's stepdad was a diplomatic courier. He would decide each week what the currency to be paid in. Wow. And Roberto says, the website I got my gray import closed down. Most gray market sites do that in the end. Ugh. And Rick says, my gray import camera gear has a warranty from UK importer where any repair is done by the same company that does Olympus repairs. Olympus are trying to scare us. I've never had a problem. Yeah. Like I said, I don't have any experience with gray market products, so they might be fine. Maybe not. I mean, I don't know why they wouldn't repair a camera after it's long out of warranty. What kind of irked me a little bit with Olympus is I had to send my EM5 Mark III in for repair, and the camera was announced in like, what was it, October, November? And I had to send it in for repair in August, September. But basically, the camera hasn't even been released for a year yet. So clearly it's under warranty. It's just been released, this camera, but they still wanted me to show proof of purchase from an authorized dealer. So I did, but I mean, I guess you got to cross the T's and dot the I's when you do warranty work. But intuitively, if the camera has just been released and you're sending it in for warranty, it would seem like they could start fixing it without needing that paperwork right away. And Morgan says, I was searching for an NVIDIA card since Radeon screwed up their software. Saw one on Wish so cheap. Yeah. Yeah, don't do it. Like I said, the guy bought a video card on Wish. I think it was a GTX 1080 Ti or something, and turned out to be like a MX 350 or something. I don't know, something cheap. Just have to wait until March, I guess. Just wanted for some photo and video editing. Yeah, you know, having a graphic card doesn't make that much difference. I mean, everybody says it does, and I'm talking about just Lightroom and Photoshop. Um, when I'm working on my photos for the kind of things that I do, like I do a lot of HDR blending, I do a lot of uh, not panorama, but auto alignment of, you know, stacking layers. There's a lot of functions I do in Photoshop and Lightroom, and the video graphic card barely moves on the performance needle. You know, you can look at the Windows graph and it'll show you the performance of, or how much, what percentage of use you're using. HDR doesn't do anything. That's almost like a single core process, HDR in photo or in Lightroom. Um, yeah, a lot of the features I don't see it using the graphic cards for much. Now in video work, it's different. NVIDIA, I assume, you know, AMD has dedicated um, codecs, right, for decompressing H.264, H.265. And if you have a software that takes advantage of that, just like QuickSync on the Intel chips, makes a humongous difference. But if you're using Adobe Premiere and you have an Intel chip that uses QuickSync, you're getting most of the performance you're ever going to get out of that system. And adding a video card will add some performance to that, but not quite as dramatically as I'm using an AMD chipset with an NVIDIA graphic card. Um, but I'm not using any software that takes advantage of the video decoding or codecs that NVIDIA graphic cards offer. I'm doing everything CPU based, you know. And some argue that CPU based processing gives you better image quality anyway. Um, I mean, I don't know about that, but uh, honestly, yeah, you can wait on a video card. It's not going to make much difference in your editing, photo editing especially. And I had one experience with Olympus Repair on an old EPL2. They replaced some parts and didn't solve the problem. I realized this is n equal 1, but I'm still gun shy about using them again. Ooh, that's surprising. I did have to send my EM5 Mark III back twice, though. That's for sure. I don't know if the problems were related or not. The symptoms were different, but they sent it back to me and it was still broken, but in a different way. And Marco says GPU means little for Lightroom and Photoshop, but anything that uses AI or highly parallel GPU makes a massive difference. Yeah, because the new NVIDIA chips, I think you might be referring to the new Tensor cores that the R series uh, have, and in particular the new 3000 series, right? Um, and the encoding engines make a huge difference in transcoding video. Yes, if you have software that supports it, which I do not. I use the free version of DaVinci Resolve, which does not take advantage of that. And then Morgan says rendering flames, for example, requires GPU. Yes, there's certainly some functions that are very GPU dependent, but I don't use any of them. Capture One is more depending on graphic card than Adobe. Okay, it's possible. And Adobe recommends one for Photoshop. It does not make much difference in Lightroom. Yeah, for the things I do, I haven't seen much difference. All right, I think I'm going to call it here. So thanks everybody for coming in today. I really appreciate your time spending with me here this last hour and a half. You guys have a great weekend. Don't forget, I've gotten about 5 spam calls while I've been sitting here. But don't forget this Sunday, we're going to have our second annual Micro Four Thirds online meetup with Jimmy Chang, Peter Forsgaard, Robin Wong, Joe Edelman, Maddie Salanto, Emily Lowry. So I'm going to have 6 guests on. So cross our fingers. I don't have any technical difficulties. Because it's going to be hard to arrange that a second time. But you guys have been great and very patient with me. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you guys again soon.